It has been 314 days since Russia invaded Ukraine, and the war continues to rage. But Ukraine continues to fight back. Their military is seeing some big wins. Joining me to talk more about this war, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. William, it's good to see you again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tasha. Good to be here.
And Ukraine says that hundreds of Russian troops were killed in a strike on Makiivka. Now, Russia acknowledged 63 people died. Even though the numbers differ, it is still considered one of the deadliest attacks on Russian forces during this war. Ukrainians used American-made rockets. What do you make of this development?
So, Natasha, this demonstrates the value, the effectiveness, and the good use that the Ukrainians are putting these weapons to. So yes, these are longer range weapons. They're not the longest range weapons that we should be providing, but they are long enough to get at the Russian interior, not the Russian land, not the Russian territory itself, but the Russian occupied part of Ukraine. That's where this attack went. This attack on Makiivka there, right there, as you demonstrate, was on a military target. A big ammo dump, and the Russian military, Russian commanders placed Russian soldiers right next to the ammo dump. The ammo dump is obviously a military target, and the Ukrainians went after it. So this is a good move by the Ukrainians.
And this morning, the Ukrainian president is also saying that Russia plans to increase the frequency of its attacks on Ukraine using these Iranian-made drones. What do you make of that tactical shift?
So it's an extension of what they've been doing, Natasha. Of course, they've been using these drones as well as cruise missiles and ballistic missiles to attack civilian targets. The Russians are attacking civilian targets. The Russians are attacking civilian infrastructure, the electricity generating capacity that provides heat and light and water and communications to the Ukrainians as they go into winter. So the Russians are attacking civilian targets, the Ukrainians are attacking military targets, and the Ukrainians are winning on the battlefield, Tasha.
And Russia's shift in strategy does heavily involve Iran. Does the U.S. and its allies need to shift their foreign policy strategy to more forcefully address Tehran?
Absolutely, absolutely. We should be trying to track down any movement of weapons from Iran to Russia. And as well as the components that go into those weapons, whether they are built in Iran or whether they're built in Russia. We should be able to crack down on those weapons going from Iran to Russia so that the Russians are not able to attack civilian targets in Ukraine.
And you mentioned these civilian targets, infrastructure targets. We know Russia targeted Kyiv again on Monday. Their attacks caused power outages. How can we better help Ukraine cope with the impact of these critical infrastructure attacks?
So two things. One, we can provide the Ukrainians with more of what we've already provided them. That is these Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles can knock down aircraft and ballistic missiles. Patriots are not so good against these drones because the drones are cheap and the Patriots are expensive. So we should provide the Ukrainians with other layers, various layers of air defense. That's number one. Number two, we should provide the Ukrainians with longer range weapons to go after the targets in Russia that are firing at the Ukrainians. We should not allow the Russians a sanctuary. The Ukrainians should not have to afford the Russians a sanctuary from which they can attack Ukraine. So those two things, I think, would help a lot for the Ukrainians.
And in recent weeks, Ukraine has ramped up its defense in the battle for Bakhmut. Today, the battle continued, Russia attacking civilian residential areas. It's more of the same of what you've been talking about, Russia's strategy here. How do we better hold Russia accountable for targeting civilians in this moment?
We have to provide the Ukrainians the ability to defend against that. We have to provide the Ukrainians the ability to target those Russian units that are responsible for attacks on civilians. And we have to keep doing all of the work that's necessary to hold them accountable. That is gathering the evidence that makes it clear and we'll be able to stand up in court that these are war crimes, that these are atrocities. And there will be accountability for those military officers as well as the entire chain of command for these war crimes.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.